Hey guys, I'm JanetOnOccasion, and today we are looking at a brand new blog post. So, who is Kostaltyn of Kislev? That's definitely been a question I've been pondering for a while since we heard about him. All we had was him on a poster, right? We knew his name, but other than how he was dressed, we didn't really have much. Oh, we did actually have a tweet. We had one tweet from Andy Hall. That was it. That was all we had. We had one tweet with his title, which we'll get into, but now we have, well, more, so let's get into it. So, blog article by Ben Barrett here. Thank you, Ben. So, welcome back to TotalWar.com, where today we're talking Kislev and their faith, plus the man at the top. He's the man of the people, the enemy of chaos, and Supreme Patriarch of the cult of Ursun, and the leader of the Grand Orthodoxy. Kostaltyn, as a legendary lord of Kislev, he stands opposite but in begrudging allegiance with Tsarina Katerin, as these mighty champions stand against the incoming tide of chaos. Once again, Katerin's been spelt wrong. Do they just have something against Katerin? She's been spelt wrong on the last two. It's a literature about her. Anyway, it's fine. Sorry to Katerin. So, Kostaltyn is a force of nature, a demagogue who knows without a shadow of a doubt that the only thing that stands between his people and annihilation is faith. A bright reflection of the dark sorcerers and champions of chaos, he sees the land around him and Ursun as what he must protect and serve. To an outsider, he may seem like a wild and near unhinged... To an outsider, he may seem wild and near unhinged, but to his followers he is an invulnerable battle priest, capable of recovering from any wound and felling any foe. So, a lot to unpack there already, so straight away, Supreme Patriarch. Interesting that they're using the title Supreme Patriarch, because obviously that was the one that was used for the head of the colleges of magic in the Empire, which is interesting. But also he's leader of the Grand Orthodoxy, which is interesting. So, what I get here, right, is that's twofold. So one, he's Supreme Patriarch of the cult of Ursun, so he's the head of the Church of Ursun, but also being the leader of the Grand Orthodoxy, which will be explained a little bit more later. He is also just the head of churches in general, in the same way that the Supreme Patriarch is the head of the colleges in the Empire, but like all of them, right? So he's the head of his particular college, but also in charge of all of the colleges of magic. So he's the head of his church, but also the final say for all churches, how they operate, which is interesting, sort of double role there, which is something you don't see in particularly the Empire, which really is kind of what we're used to for these sort of organisations. The same with the rest of the Empire, the rest of the Warhammer world as well. The different heads of churches remain completely separate. The different worship remains very separate, but not here, which is really unique. So I like that. I like that immediately. So also, what does it say? Begrudging allegiance with Tsarina Katerin. So they clearly don't get on. Clearly, this guy has a lot of ambition. Kind of like the whole Rasputin, mythos. He was seen to have too much power. He had too much sway over the Tsarina. But here, obviously, Tsarina is the one in power. It's not just some sort of shadow influence going on here. He's got a lot more direct power. So they're butting heads, which I think is really interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. So, okay. And, also, near invulnerable, yeah, again, it's the Rasputin mythos. The fact he just wouldn't die. He got poisoned, and then stabbed, and then beaten, and then thrown in a river, and then they found his body, there was ice under his fingernails as he tried to drag himself out of the ice, because somehow he'd lived through all that. I think that's all the steps. Either way, he got ransacked. So, right, let's crack on. So, we asked Total War Warhammer 3's principal writer, Andy Hall, if he's willing to share some more secrets about his new legendary lord. So this guy's been the head writer for all of the Total War Warhammer trilogy. So he's been responsible for all the writing, at least all the main things. I don't know if he writes literally every article, but anyway. So, Andy, of course, the first thing is not to underestimate him, as many of his foes have in the past. He may have a more humble aspect than other legendary lords with their magnificent armour and bulging muscles, but the thing about Kostaltyn is that he just will not die. He's far too stubborn to merely succumb to his wounds, and there are heretics to slay. The assumption might be that this is no melee lord, but if you place him in the heat of battle, surrounded by units of loyal Kislevites, he can buff into a religious frenzy. That's going to give the enemy quite a problem. So I like that. So I did speculate that he'd be more of a melee support lord kind of thing, and it looks like that's the case. So he's going to be very, very stubborn, possibly like a Gorok type, where he just, you know, can sit there all day taking damage. Because obviously he doesn't look particularly strong, does he? You know, if we go up to his main, you know, banner up there, like he doesn't look particularly tough. But when you've got a bunch of gods keeping you safe, then that does tend to have an impact. So and he's very stubborn. He's very stubborn, of course. So that's good too. But yeah, I think that's gonna be really interesting as a dynamic. Just this religious zealot, just whipping everyone around him up into a frenzy, which I think is very cool. And also in stark contrast to Katerin, who is very just rigidly professional and really just sort of pushing Kislev into like a new era. And then, yeah, there's this sort of horrible zealot, basically, thinking, no, Kislev needs to go in this direction, actually. So I like that. I really like that. So, you might call... So this is a quote from an unknown Kossar. So, you might call him a madman. I'm not going to try and do some accent, anyway. You might call him a mad old man, and maybe he is, but I saw him lead a charge at the Oblinsk citadel to drive out the beastmen. He took a sword to the guts and another to the thigh. It just made him more dangerous, his mace crushing skulls with every swipe, and his followers, like Darz's fire, they surged behind him in a howling wave, desperate to fight beside him, desperate for a mere hint of his approval. That fervour, that devotion, that's real power right there. So what I like here is the sort of subject is him, right? That's where the power is seen. The power seems to be coming from him rather than whatever divine energy he's channeling. So I like to think that it's all about ego, right? He's at the top of this thing. He wants the power, right? That's what I see. It's a cult of personality around this one man who sort of refuses to die. That's how I see it, which of course, yeah, the Tsarina's going to have issue with that, right? You know, for good or for bad. You know, partly she's there by, I guess, divine right. You know, that's how monarchies work. But then also, like, yeah, someone trying to nab power for some crazy, off-the-wall sort of, just sort of religious zealotry. Just, you know, it's not a good thing to have a country sort of led by someone like that. Yeah, you've got to have calmer heads, really. So, moving on. As part of the creative process, how did Kostaltyn come about? While we've certainly fleshed him out, Kostaltyn was part of a massive trove of fantastic concepts and material that Games Workshop created for us and their new iteration of Kislev. We've worked in close collaboration, as we always do, to bring these concepts to life. The thing is, that trove is far from exhausted. So this is really cool. So obviously when we get new, you know, sort of new lore as part of Total War Warhammer, you know, we had Silostra, for instance. We had Silostra. Silostra was actually a invention of Andy Hall. So, you know, he's written new stuff before, but in this case, this is actually, although we are seeing it in Total War Warhammer for the first time, right, this character, you know, Kostaltyn, we're seeing him here first. It is a part of the greater sort of Games Workshop, you know, new Kislev for the old world franchise. So, you know, there's more going on there in the background. So we will no doubt see this guy turn up in, you know, hopefully in a bunch of books and all sorts of stuff going forward, you know, which is really interesting. So the fact that Total War Warhammer is leading the way on this stuff is amazing. It puts Total War Warhammer on the cutting edge of new fantasy babble. It's great. I love it. So, you know, it's odd. It's odd to come into this with Total War informing us about how this stuff works, rather than, you know, someone like me who's got like 100 books on the shelf. I can't just go to them and be like, oh, so this legendary lord here, he's got all this stuff about him. There's nothing. It's really cool. So I love this. I'm learning along with you guys, which is really unique. You know, usually when something's mentioned in Total War Warhammer, I already know what it is, and that's you know, cool. I get to be like, ooh, him, you know, or ooh, her, or ooh, that. But here it's just like, ooh, what? So this is really fun. So I like that. But it's cool to see that there's a bunch of stuff in the background that, you know, will slowly surface through either Total War or Games Workshop, which is really interesting. So I'm really excited about that. You know, as a fan, this is goldmine for me. So, you have already hinted that Kostaltyn doesn't get on with his fellow legendary lord, the Ice Queen. Can you tell us why? To talk about this, we should quickly cover what the Great Orthodoxy is, as it's a new and exciting part of the lore driving the schism that is rocking Kislev. The Great Orthodoxy was founded by Kateryna's father, Tsar Boris Boka, as he was reuniting Kislev. Before the Orthodoxy, the cults of the Kislevite gods were widely divergent, often using rites deep in the woods or on solitary hills of the Oblast conducted by hags, witches, or other undesirables that modern patriarchs would declare heathen. So it makes sense, you know, with any sort of like weird tribal religion, you know, you're going to have all these weird creatures come to life, and in the world of Warhammer, you're going to end up with a bunch of ne'er-do-wells taking advantage, aren't you? You know, it's good to keep this stuff organised in a world where sort of belief and channeling power of anything can be ludicrously bad. You know, you could summon a flippin' chaos demon by accident, you know, or intentionally, and just not realising that that's what you were doing in the first place. It's just bad. It's just bad news. So the Tsar had a valid concern that such rituals could be subsumed by the dark powers. See, and so the Orthodoxy was formed to effectively codify religion. So note that the cults to the gods, such as the cult of Ursun, remain active, but must do so under the strict oversight of the Orthodoxy. So this is really interesting, the fact that they have like a person in charge of all of them, right? All that worship, there's someone at the head of it, and of course that's Kostaltyn. And although that's a great way to try and root out the sort of the dangers of this sort of rogue worship, you know, they can take so many forms that it's very easy for those insidious powers to take hold of them, or for just accidents to happen, you know, for sorcerers to claim to be devout in some regard, you know, and just misleading people and channeling the winds of magic in that usual unsafe way that is unsafe for people generally. So, you know, there's a lot of danger there. So to get them all under some kind of body that can sort of manage and do some housekeeping for them all, I think is important. But of course, with such a new thing like that, and with something as powerful as religion in the old world, that is going to lead to a lot of power going to whoever is at the top, and that's Kostaltyn. So, the Great Orthodoxy is still only a generation old, but is growing stronger and more powerful. As you would expect, many still cling to the old ways and utterly reject this centralisation, while others have learned to work within the strictures and are able to wield the Orthodoxy's might to their own end. Kostaltyn is certainly the latter, yet Kateryna is seen by many as being of older times, in the mould of the ancient Khan queens, and so pin their support to her banner, further fanning Kostaltyn's hatred, and she's a magic user and therefore a heretic. Yeah. So no doubt they can sit down and work it out. No reason for things to get out of hand in Total War Warhammer 3. Was he cool to write for? Absolutely. You get to really turn on the fire and brimstone tab, write heretic a lot. Voltmar has nothing on him in comparison, but the Supreme Patriarch is also quite the enigma. He's in charge of one of the richest organisations in the old world, but looks like a bedraggled wretch. We enjoyed playing around with that. His voice actor has put in an amazing performance, lots of spitting into the mic as he screams out Kostaltyn's screeds. I can't wait for everyone to hear him. Excellent. Our thanks to Andy for his answers, and you for reading. That's me! Aw, you're welcome. Watch for Chaos and keep an eye on TotalWar.com for further Kislev content. And they spelled it with a K, isn't that fun? Ah, cheeky. In the future. So, yeah, cool stuff. Very cool stuff indeed. So, yeah, the guy's a crazy heretic. Not heretic, but shouts heretic a lot. But yeah, just crazy zealot. But that growing power I think is really interesting, because there's a few other things going on here. So the idea of him being the head of some organisation, like he is, and there's supposedly being a rift of sorts. And we have some other hints that Tsarina Kateryna, her faction is called, is it Kateryna's expedition or Tsarina's expedition? Either way, it's her expedition, right? And so with this new threat to Kislev, you know, the sort of the rumours of a dead god, and her like literally fighting her way into the realms of chaos to try and save this thing, I can imagine there'd be a huge amount of resentment, where she is leading Kislev into a new era. I mean, the whole army is kitted out with ice stuff that I don't think they would have had before her. Under Boris Ursus, And, the old army books, just the White Dwarf supplements, we didn't have that stuff. In my mind, all of the sort of the ice guard and the sleds and everything, in my mind, that's all new, not just for the setting and everything, but literally, it's been created under Tsarina Katerin, right? It's her that has built this stuff in order to go and fight the hordes of chaos, right? It's a very practical approach. So she's using her power very proactively, right? Whereas Kostaltyn, he could just be at home whipping up a frenzy and saying, no, worship is the way to do it, and just beating anyone who doesn't go, just get whipped up to the same zealotry. Anyone who questions that, shout heretic at them, the mob just beats them to a pulp, right? It's that kind of dangerous rhetoric, which is really at odds with someone like Tsarina Katerin, who loves her people and is incredibly practical and very proactive, which I think is amazing. Although I don't really like using the end times to reference, it is a good character reference for her, where when Chaos invaded, Kislev got entirely wiped out. But the last place to survive was Eringrad, okay? Everyone was on the last ships leaving Eringrad, and she stayed behind, basically just to just 1v1 Katerin versus Demon Horde, right? And just dealt with them, right? Sacrificed herself, of course. But, she's very practical. She'll do what it takes to save her people. So the fact that she's got this proactive approach, and then there's just this, lunatic at home who refuses to die, that as you can see from this quote, from this unknown Kossar, has a huge deal of reverence surrounding him. So I think this is fantastic. So in my mind, I see this guy as the villain of the piece, which I think is really cool, because it's very Warhammer to have oh, we're the good guys, but we're playing as the villain in the good guy faction, because it's Warhammer, everything's got to be a little bit messed up. Everyone's a bit of a dick, let's be honest. But I think this is really cool. This shows a lot of promise. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see how this goes. I don't know. I've got nothing else to say, but I think the relationship between Kostaltyn and Katerin is going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be really damn cool. So I've got nothing else to say. Let me know what you guys think. One other thing, which I know someone will probably say, and there's this too. Daz, by the way, is the god of fire in the Kislev pantheon. There's that sort of, if he goes, then the light of Kislev and the warmth of Kislev disappears, which is why he's a good candidate for what god is missing, because, you'd probably be better off building ice sleds if there was no heat anymore, right? Probably helps to then use that as a tool. But anyway, that's just a thought. Also, if you're a powerful ice sorceress and, ice witch living in the north, because that's the thing, the north is more magically imbued. It's close to the chaos, the collapsed chaos gates. It's close to the chaos waste. There's more winds of magic there. It's denser. Along the equator, it's a lot weaker. So if you're way up in the north, you're going to have a huge amount of magic at your disposal. So, and there's to be a lot of magic sustaining stuff. So that's why I like the sleds, because it's just going to sustain itself once you've made it, because of all the innate magic in the area. Anyway, I love it. I love this stuff. This is really cool. I'm really excited, as I'm sure you guys can tell, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think about it all. So let me know, and we'll have lots to talk about. So take care, guys. Wrap up warm. You don't want to get a cold. Yeah, good. Toodaloo.